want to talk to you a little bit today about your car in bankruptcy. It seems like one of the most frequent questions I get from clients is concern about whether they're going to keep their car or not when they come into the bankruptcy process. I'd like to break it down into the two chapters, the Chapter 7 and the Chapter 13. First of all, with respect to your automobile, almost everybody keeps their automobile in the bankruptcy process if you want to keep your car. Just so you know that. Typically, people that come into my office, most everybody their car is financed. And the general rule is that cars that are financed typically do not have equity. Under the Florida exemption scheme in a Chapter 7, where you're trying to make sure the value of your assets is within your exemptions, the good news about a car that's financed is it typically doesn't have equity, because the typical rule is that when you drive your new car off the garage or the parking lot or the sales department, there's less than, it depreciates about 30% when you just drive off the lot. So typically, unless you put a lot of money down on your automobile, you're not going to have any equity in that car, so you can exempt it out in a Chapter 7 and protect it and not lose it. What'll happen is you'll continue to make your payment. It's called a reaffirmation. Typically what happens is that you'll sign what's called a reaffirmation agreement. The creditor for your car, whether it's Honda Finance or whomever, will send a reaffirmation agreement, which just indicates in which you're, at this point under the current law in our area, if they ask for it, you're required to sign it. We send it back to the creditor. You continue to make your payments directly to them, and no one picks up your automobile. And in the Chapter 7, trustee doesn't take your automobile because you don't. It's within your Florida exemptions. There are also other options in Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 for your automobile. Sometimes people will come in and they'll be in arrears on their car, and the problem is they're 2 or 3 months behind on their car payments. With a Chapter 7, if you file before the car is repossessed, you can typically work something out with the creditor, get the payments caught up very quickly, and keep the car. But you do, in any event, you have a stay that's typically going to last 90 to 120 days. It's going to keep the lender from repossessing the car. You also have the option in a Chapter 13, if you're behind, if there's an arrearage on your car and you're able to file before the car is repossessed. If you were, as an example, you were 3 months behind on your car payments, so you're able to put those car payments in your Chapter 13 and cure the default on the loan. What you have to do is you have to start making your monthly payments the month after you file your Chapter 13. And in addition to that, typically your plan would take the arrearages you have and carve it out over 60 months to pay back the arrearages that you owe. So you're able to reaffirm the debt, keep the car, and so that's another option for keeping the car. If your decision is that you want to get rid of your car, sometimes people say, my car is a lemon, I'm underwater with it, I can't afford it, I opted for a BMW that, it's $800 a month in car payments, and I just don't have that kind of money to make the payment. You do have the option of surrendering the car. And if you surrender the car back to the lender, you're able to discharge any unsecured debt with the automobile. The problem is if outside the bankruptcy context, if they repossess your car, typically they sell it. The sale typically does not cover the mortgage balance or the loan balance on your car, and then there's a deficiency judgment which they can file suit on and get a judgment against you. Well, the good news about a Chapter 7 bankruptcy or a 13 where you surrender the car, you're able to discharge the unsecured liability on that car, and so you can get out from under the thing. There's actually a third option with regard to automobiles that works well in Chapter 13 but not so well in Chapter 7. There's a concept called redemption, where you're able to say, look, the car I have has a $15,000 lien on it. The car is only worth half of that. It's worth $7,500. And what you can do is you can file what's called in Chapter 7, you can file a motion to redeem the car. The problem with a Chapter 7, if the court determines that the car is worth $7,500. What they'll say is, look, in order to keep the car, you have to pay off that full $7,500 in a lump sum to keep the car. In Chapter 13 now, it works a little bit better. It works a lot better, actually. In Chapter 13, you're able to take the knock off half the value, and that with that example, $15,000 lien, $7,500 value, you're able to take the $7,500, put it in your Chapter 13 plan as an unsecured debt, and typically the typical Chapter 13 pays out something less than 100%, as little as 5% sometimes, and so you're able to get rid of the unsecured portion of it at a fraction of the amount. With respect to the secured amount, unlike Chapter 7, where you have to come up with a full $7,500 amount immediately, in a Chapter 13, you can take that $7,500, spread out that payment over the 60 months of your Chapter 13 plan, pay a reasonable interest rate on top, which we typically refer to as the till rate, and you're able to keep the car and basically pay off the car for perhaps half of the amount, and using our example, half the amount of the original loan. So these are some different options you have for your automobile. A, you can keep it in almost every case. B, and you're able to redeem it in certain circumstances where you can pay less than the full amount of it and keep the car. You also always have the option of surrendering the car, getting out from under the loan altogether, and not having them pursue you down the line for a deficiency claim. If you have any questions regarding these issues, please give us a call here. We can schedule you an appointment by Zoom. We can get you in here personally, and our consultations are free.